Good afternoon, everybody. On this Monday, June 23rd, 2025, I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride home. The big story in the gossip world of entertainment news will be Blake Lively being deposed. It is deposition day for Blake Lively getting deposed by Brian Friedman. If any information comes out today, we'll have the breaking news to share it. My guess is they'll be pretty tight-lipped, as there won't be many people in the room. Some of Blake's counsel and, of course, Baldoni's counsel, the stenographer, the videographer. Hey, if you're doing the video, let me know if anything interesting went down. We've also got a star from Real Housewives of New Jersey abruptly ending a television interview. I'll explain why. And then also Mahmoud Khalil is reunited with his wife and baby, meets his baby for the first time. This after spending over 3 months in a Louisiana detention center. We've also got Albrego Garcia is now a free man, apparently. I'm going to share what the judge had to say about that and more on the ICE detentions as people are starting to fight back. Tow companies towing the ICE vehicles, and then more on the war lies. Again, we have a hot war breaking out between the U.S., Israel, Iran. Who knows who else is going to be involved? What does this mean for us as everyday citizens and for the country we pay taxes to? And a lot of people don't want to fund this war. What does it mean? So we'll get into all those stories and more. It all starts right now on The Rush. As you guys know, I've been at my mobile studio setup here in New York City. No Patreon episode today, but normally I go live on Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. Today I've got a stand-up show. If you want to watch a entire stand-up set of mine from the New York Comedy Club over the weekend. A big thank you to all the people that came from upstate New York. We had people come from Westchester, from all over. So thank you guys all so much for all the support. It really feels good when I'm, in the city hustling when people can come out and support. But I got that. If you weren't able to make it to the show, I've got it for you. Go to patreon.com/Dave Neal. All right, here she is. Teresa, is it Gudish? Am I pronouncing her name right? Probably not. She abruptly ends an interview after the news team asks her some very personal questions. Let's have a listen.
You're going to be in Zanies. People are going to ask you all kinds of questions. And how is it that a family doesn't pay their taxes for years?
What family are you talking about?
Your family. Was that what the fraud charges were?
Okay, I'm hanging up. Let's just hang up. That's it.
Oh, she doesn't. So she didn't know how to hang up. So he asked her about fraud charges. Now, this is ridiculous. First of all, it's one thing if you're doing an interview, that's, the investigative, but she's there to promote her show at a comedy club in Chicago, Zanies, which is a great club in Chicago and Nashville. If you want to see me perform at either one of those, email Zanies and tell them they want Dave Neal. Trust me, 3 strongly worded emails. They'll probably book me. But either way, after she's like, nope, don't have the time for this. And I actually give her credit for that. It's like, you don't have the right to ask these questions. Or do they? Have a listen to what they said after.
Oh, she didn't like that question.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wasn't that part of the show?
Well, she did go to jail for 11 months, and now I think her and her husband, they're facing tax charges again, but I don't know where that case stands. We would have asked her about it.
He can't move back to the country.
Yeah, her ex-husband is now living abroad, but
it's what reality shows are made of.
I don't know if her friends at Zanies are going to ask her about that, but, well.
Anyway, we'll find out. I'd love to know.
And we'll
All
see.
right, so by the way, this guy is such a dick hey, that's what reality shows are all about, right? You ask questions about the most personal thing that's ever happened to them, ripped apart their family. It's like morning news. She didn't even have a coffee yet. I'm not even defending her. I don't know anything about this story, but the idea that he asked based on, well, people are going to be asking you these types of questions. It's like, have some balls and just ask the question if that's what you're trying to do, but don't play it off as though, hey, this is normal. So good on her, I think, for setting some boundaries. And again, I don't know a thing about her. All right. So, as we shared in the opening teaser, here's a nice tweet. I hope Brian has a floral tie. That's because, of course, florals is what Blake Lively wanted to wear for her movie about domestic violence. It was very strange. Either way, there's Brian Friedman getting ready to depose Blake Lively. It is deposition day. Again, I'm sure some information will come out eventually. I don't know if we'll get it today. Maybe Brian Friedman could let us know how long this deposition might be. please share us some information. So this was posted over the weekend on Team Justin Baldoni, the subreddit. There is a doctor, I guess she's a doctor, they put it in quotes, Leslie Dobson. What's really interesting about her is she was named in the lawsuit as a potential witness. Now, a witness for Blake Lively? No. A witness for Wayfair. Now, she has been adamantly supporting Blake Lively to the point where she is now being accused as being the person who spread the fake HR complaints against Justin Baldoni. As we shared, Zach and Donna, cover this stuff. Daily Dose of Donna and No Filter with Zach. They read these HR complaints, and I'm in the camp that, like, look, if something gets shared with you, read it. They used their critical eye. They said, hey, it looks like BS, but I think it's good that they decided to read it, because even though it was kind of smearing Baldoni, it showed that there was this paper trail of somebody faking HR complaints. So either Dr. Leslie Dobson is being used as some sort of useful idiot, and I don't know if she is, but if she's being used as some useful idiot, by who? That's the big question. Either way, she's made it very clear, like, her stance on this. And, if you're a psychologist, you just got to be careful, because it's one thing for people in the audience to armchair diagnose folks, but it's like, if you have a degree and an education and in diagnosing people on a one-to-one level, you have to make it very clear that if you're not working with somebody, you can't possibly know what the heck happened. But, she's doing content creating. So they compiled a list of all of the kind of wacky and sometimes, in some cases, outrageous lies that she said. Let's just play a couple.
And saw that a lead male character in It Ends With Us was actually accused of essaying 3 actresses. Okay, so worst case scenario, if this information is true, how many people have worked with this actor and have not told their truth about their experience with him?
So this is what's crazy. So she brings up this idea that he may have assaulted 3 different actresses. But as far as we know, the only people that ever floated these HR complaints were Dr. Leslie to Zach and Donna. So we don't even have... there's the chain of command where these HR complaints came from. I don't know where they went before Dr. Leslie. She, I guess, claimed in private messages that were released that she got them from an unnamed Sony source. But could she theoretically have just made these up and then sent them to other people? And then after the other people reported them, then she comments on how these things exist. That would be so sinister if that were the case. And if she didn't do that, she should really out her source. Like, where are these faulty HR complaints from?
How many have been paid off? How many have had to sign NDAs? All started with, which was sexual harassment. And I want to say that I'm getting word that it's not just sexual harassment. We're talking actual abuse.
And none of this has come out. There has been zero credible information that there was abuse whatsoever. So to think that a psychologist might be wanting to defend victims, ostensibly mainly women in this case, of the DV variety, and for her to sort of conflate real victims with this case where there's been no evidence whatsoever of physical abuse is mind-blowing. Guys, this is mind-blowing to me. So now you've got Wayfair saying, we want her as a witness. It's like, a witness to what? What do they know that I don't, that might lead to some either, she was, again, this is all hypothetical because we don't know. Was she working for Blake Lively? Was there dark money to have her as a professional seed some of this stuff? And if not, is she a lone wolf who's just making things up? Or is it confirmation bias where she's getting sent fake things and, like I said, as a useful idiot, would share them? Or the final is she's right and none of this information has come out yet, in which case everyone else is going to look stupid. I don't think it's the last one, I'll tell you that much. So people have said she should 100% be sued for defamation. That side has been spreading nothing but hearsay and lies from the beginning. And again, listen, I don't know what side she's on. I just find this wild that someone who's a doctor, and doctors like any other high level people that have professional certifications to diagnose and things like that. There's so much credibility on the line to think that she would make these sort of accusations and leaps without having seen any of this physical evidence. It's crazy. All right, let's go over to ICE. This is so interesting. Again, obviously, you guys know my stance on the ICE raids. I think it's inhumane what is happening in our country, mainly because, these people that are being rounded up and deported and ripped away from their families, for the most part, they've done nothing wrong other than, don't have documentation to be in the country. But here the halfway post said, breaking, a growing group of tow truck drivers in Los Angeles are reportedly stalking ICE convoys so they can tow away all the unmarked ICE vans and SUVs that get parked incorrectly the moment the agents get out to start looking for people to abduct and deport. Can we make a movie about this? Can we get Liam Neeson on the phone? Imagine Liam Neeson, a tow truck driver, takes matters into his own hands. I mean, I'm making light of this situation, but this is the type of stuff that gives you a little bit of faith in humanity, isn't it? When you're like, gosh, there are people that are trying to use whatever bit of power they have to stop the insanity going on right there. Here's Jon Favreau talking about the plainclothes masked agents wreaking havoc across the country.
So you have plainclothes agents with masks, with guns, sometimes in unmarked vehicles. What are people supposed to do? Like when someone just grabs you now or grabs someone that you're with, you're not supposed to demand a warrant. You're not supposed to try to stop it. What if it's just some bad guy? What if it's just some criminal who's just going to say that they're from ICE and grab you? Now, that's the country we're living in now, where like anyone can just be rounded up and grabbed off the street, and now you're not supposed to say anything and not supposed to resist and not supposed to ask for a fucking warrant because it's ICE? I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah, because we live in a country where, you want transparency. You want police officers with body cam footage, Freedom of Information Act requests so that you can see actually what goes down. And now they're actually saying that they can't, share their face. And a lot of reports are coming out that these are just deputized prison guards and that are clearly not trained in this type of confrontation. It's absolutely wild stuff. I'm going to get more into some of the deportations in a minute, but let's go over to the war that broke out in Iran as the U.S. has bombed nuclear facilities. Here's Senator Kaine. He talks about how the U.S. lied their way into a war several decades ago and how we might be on that same path.
America was lied into a war in 2002 against Iraq with a Republican administration giving us false information about Iraq's weapons program. I have grave concern that we're going down the same path. Donald Trump's own national security officials have stated that Iran was not close to having a nuclear weapon. And Shannon, just Friday night, the Israeli foreign minister said that its bombing campaign over the last 9 days had set back the Iranian nuclear program by at least 2 or 3 years. There was no imminent threat to the United States from this nuclear program. It was an offensive war of choice by a president without consultation with Congress. We're going to have the briefing this week. We'll have a vote. I know many Republicans will fall in line and say a president can do whatever he wants. But I hope members of the Senate and the House will take their Article 1 responsibility seriously and say, you didn't even notify us, much less get an authorization. The U.S. should not be at war without a vote of Congress.
Yeah, sounds pretty simple to me, right, folks? And again, we're going to find out how many people are complicit in this lie. Iran did not have nukes. They were not close to having nukes. And it's my belief that the U.S. was kind of suckered into this bombing in the first place. Because what's the damage that's going to happen now? Well, Iran's foreign minister says we will retaliate following U.S. airstrikes. Now, there are other countries that have set up diplomatic ways to get their residents out of Iran. Apparently, the U.S. hasn't done that. There's just Americans stranded there, and they're in a real tough place right now as things have gone sideways. But I wanted to share some interesting thoughts about Iran and the idea that they may have sleeper cells inside the U.S. Now, listen, this isn't fear-mongering, okay? You guys know me. I try to just lay out for you what the heck's going on. They said they would retaliate, and the question is how? How are they going to retaliate? Will it be one of the many bases that we have in the Middle East? Will it be something domestic? I think this is a real scary time.
Well, I think the president certainly feels very good about what he has described as a spectacular success, but that success may now be determined by what the next days and weeks look like, with real concerns, not just here, but among the national security and defense community about the potential for retaliation. As my colleague Courtney will get into in further detail, the questions are, is it come in the form of Iran itself? Does it come in the form of Iranian proxies throughout that region? Or, as NBC News is now reporting, we have learned from multiple U.S. officials that Iran sent a private message to President Trump in the days before he gave the final order for those military strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities, that if he took such a step, Iran could respond with terror attacks inside the United States by activating sleeper cells, it says it has within this country. That message, we are told by those officials, those sources, was conveyed to President Trump from an intermediary during his visit to the G7.
All right, great. Good to know, folks. And again, not telling you guys this to raise alarms, but this is what happens, right? This is like when Trump thought he would tariff other countries and that they wouldn't have reciprocal tariffs. So you think you can just knock out, where they keep their nukes? Now there's reports that they actually don't know where the uranium is that they already made. So we knocked out their facilities so they can't make new uranium, process it and all of that. Well, how about the stuff they already have? It's gone. They moved it before the bombs. So wild stuff. Here is what the Brits are saying about this bombing.
The Iranians will need to save face by retaliating in some way, shape or form. And I'm beginning to see reports that the Iranian parliament has agreed that the country should close the Straits of Hormuz, which would cause a massive economic shock because between 20 and 30% of the world's oil and gas goes through that area. And it's something that they could do very easily indeed.
You know what's interesting about this, how ironic it is that the United States didn't vote before entering this war with Iran, and yet the Iranian parliament voted before closing the Strait to Hormuz. This is just, it's so funny that we're the land of the free, the democracy, and yet that country actually took a vote on what to do and ours didn't. Now, of course, that's just one specific issue. But yeah, the hypocrisy of our leaders to say they don't want wars and then they just do stuff like that. Now, you might be saying, well, what about these sleeper cells? Are we going to be okay? We must have competent leaders out there. Chris Murphy posted this. As our nation girds for possible Iranian terrorist attacks, this is the person Trump put in charge of terrorism prevention. 22-year-old, recent work experience, landscaping grocery clerk. Never worked a day in counterterrorism, but he's a big Trump fan, so he got the job. Is this real? The intern in charge. Meet the 22-year-old Trump's team picked to lead terrorism prevention. Well, you got to have faith, I guess. I don't know what to tell people. Let's go to Mahmoud Khalil. Obviously, we've had a lot to talk about Mahmoud Khalil. He was a Palestinian activist at the former Columbia University student. He was put in detention for 3 months. He was really the first big name activist that was put into detention with really no trial in sight. But because so many people rallied in his support, he was released. He did miss the birth of his firstborn. But here he is being released from immigration. And I've said this all along. If he's done something illegal, charge him with crimes. We'll get into Albrego Garcia and the same thing. I've been accused of being anti-Semitic for my belief in people's First Amendment rights, whether it's something I agree with or not. If someone has an opinion, I want our country to protect that opinion. And that doesn't mean you want wars to break out, this or that, but he's a man who's, been an activist for his people, and he's, promoted peace and all of that. And I've yet to see any evidence, and clearly the government hasn't, where he's crossed that line into illegal activity. Here he is coming out of detention in Louisiana.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm not gonna give much comments here. My priority now is to get to my beautiful wife and precious son. We need to do that as soon as possible. And although justice prevailed, but it's long, very long overdue, and this shouldn't have taken 3 months. I leave some incredible men behind me, over 1,000 people behind me. in a place where they shouldn't have been in that place in the first place. I hope the next time that I will be in Jina is to actually visit this museum that's a testimony on America's racist policies against immigrants.
Wow. And no lies told there, as he talks about the 1,000 or so people he's met that are, a lot of them were just rounded up and thrown into detention center. Here he is speaking out. I'm going to actually share with you the moment he walks through the airport with his wife and son. It actually reminds me, 13 months ago, my son was born, and I was able to do that video. You do this video where the husband walks the baby out of the hospital. It's like you put him in the car seat for the first time. It's a tiny little baby, 8 pounds, 7 ounces. And it's this prideful moment. Mahmoud Khalil never got that moment. This is the moment he got, coming out of detention and getting back to his family. So if you're listening to the audio only, it's people cheering for him as he literally walks through Newark, New Jersey. He's like, come on, you put me in detention for 3 months and then I had to go to Newark, New Jersey. Make it make sense. So he's holding his wife. He's raising his fist to people and they're smiling ear to ear. Now, due process did not happen for him. He had to go behind bars in a detention facility for 3 months, all because he's protesting a senseless war.
Even if they would kill me, I would still speak up for Palestine. Again, I just want to go back and just continue the work that I was already doing, advocating for Palestinian rights, a speech that should actually be celebrated rather than punished.
There it is, advocating for their rights. Not, pushing for Hamas, not, being anti-Israel, just advocating for the rights of the people, And no matter how you want to twist it, that's all he's doing. And if there's any information I'm not aware of, let them charge him. Now, Albrego Garcia is an interesting case, one of the men who was sent to an El Salvadorian prison. Again, the U.S. government, Trump, our director, all of the different, Kristi Noem, they all said, he is not coming back. The El Salvadorian president, he is not coming back. He's a terrorist. He's a murderer. He's this, he's that. Well, they finally bring him back, Albrego Garcia. The Supreme Court says, bring him the F home. You want to charge him with a crime? Charge him. Well, the judge has now denied the motion to detain Kilmar Albrego Garcia. What a wild win for justice.
We have huge news right now. A federal judge has just ordered the release of Kilmar Albrego Garcia, denying the federal government's motion to detain him pending trial in his criminal matter in Tennessee. As you know, he is facing criminal charges in Tennessee associated with smuggling charges. Well, a federal judge just ordered minutes ago that he should not be detained pending trial. The federal judge found that accusations that Albrego Garcia is connected to MS-13 are based on, quote, double hearsay, that the federal government overstated the possible sentence he could face, and that the typical sentence if convicted for crimes like these are about 12 months, and said that they will have a further hearing to determine the conditions of his release. Now, ultimately, it's unclear whether or not Albrego Garcia will be released because ICE will want to continue to keep him detained. This is separate from ICE. The Department of Justice has charged him with criminal offenses. They lost this detention hearing, but ICE could theoretically still keep him behind bars. But this is a major win for Kilmar Albrego Garcia nonetheless. Spread the word. I'll have a full breakdown on my...
Yeah, so, look, he's still going to trial. It's about keeping him locked up before then. And again, what happens next is yet to be seen. But it is a big win for justice. These are people that were going to their jobs. They were living their life. They had kids. They had his wife is an American citizen. They're only guilty of being part of a quota, a roundup to get 3,000 people arrested a day and sent out of our country. That's what they're guilty of. Not the country I want to live in. Not the issues that lower the cost of food, lower inflation, make housing more affordable, universal health care for everybody, taxing the ultra rich, smaller defense budget. This ain't it. This ain't what we signed up for. We'll continue to share these stories as I think people should be really, really pushing back on this idea that this is the sort of direction of the soul of our nation. I don't think so. All right, let me know what you guys think. We'll be back in the morning. We'll have all of your updates then. We'll see you later. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.